Say, good afternoon, man. I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone and tell you thank you for taking the time out to tune in because without you guys, I would not have a show, and you make it possible for me to be able to come and sit down and talk to you. Today we have a very special show. We normally don't do shows um, on the weekend, but it's imperative that we do the shows for the elected officials as well as the candidates that want to introduce themselves to you guys to be able to have a real detailed conversation so that you can get a full scope of who these people are. Today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Vidal Martinez. He is running for Harris County judge. Um, and you guys know the current Harris County judge is Lena Hidalgo, and that's not working for us. So, Mr. Martinez is a guy that I've been watching for a while. He is a guy that is a businessman. He's a mover and a shaker. But more importantly, he's a man of faith and freedom. He's a man that believes that Harris County can be the best county in the United States of America, and it can be one of the safest counties again in the United States of America. So I'm gonna quit doing all the talking and I'm gonna tell my friend to unmute his microphone and we're gonna let Mr. Vidal Martinez come in. And you guys, if you want, ask questions, and I'll get those questions across to him. And because I got my own questions, but we interact. So, how you doing today, Mr. Martinez?
Gary, I'm doing great. Happy Sunday night to you and to all your listeners and viewers. Happy to be here with you.
Well, let's dive into it, man. Introduce yourself. Tell the people what you're running for.
I'm Vidal Martinez. I've lived here in Harris County for 47 years, and I have been here as in various different capacities. I'm a lawyer. I'm a father, a grandfather. I've built my business here. I've been a lucky man to have represented most of you and all of you as a port commissioner, as a University of Houston regent, as a federal prosecutor, and as on the Greater Houston Partnership Transportation Committee. I've been a public servant for the last 47 years, and I am tired of what's happening at the county government. I wasn't looking to run for office, but between the crime wave, the corruption, and the incompetence that we're seeing today, it's time to put the county back into solid business, conservative infrastructure hands and take care of our infrastructure and not engage in the social woke left progressive programs that this commissioner's court seems to want to do at every opportunity.
I tell you what, man, we're gonna dive straight into this. You brought up crime is one of the reasons that you decided to run. How will you handle crime, and how long will it take you to start the process if you become the new Harris County judge?
The next meeting in January is January 3rd at 10 o'clock in the morning. I will have the gavel in my hand at 10 o'clock, and by 10:15 in the morning, I plan to do these two items. And I've already talked to Commissioners Cagle and Ramsey about the agenda on that first day. The very first thing I'm going to do is to cancel the catch and release bail bond reform that has completely backfired on this commissioner's court. It has caused the biggest crime wave in Harris County. We are now not known as the first words from the moon, Houston, the eagle has landed, or as the biggest medical center in the world, or as Space City, or as the number one port in America. We're known as the murder capital of America now, and that has to stop. And it's a direct result of this bail bond release program that this commissioner's court entered into in a settlement in January of 2019. And because of that, I'm going to get rid of that on day one. Second thing I'm going to do, that may take me to 10:10 in the morning. By 10:15 in the morning, I'm going to have on the table a vote to fund law enforcement and to fund the district attorney's office. We're going to do that. They haven't received any money, any significant permanent money for hiring. We have not funded law enforcement for 3 years and almost 3.5 years now. We haven't given the DA the tools to be able to handle 135,000 criminal backlog of cases right now. What part of this makes sense to you, Gary? That we have a crime wave in our hands, and yet we defund law enforcement, have a third of the sheriff's department, that's 5,000 people, quit or retire, and with the DAs can't hire prosecutors to handle that. What part of that makes sense to you? That's going to happen by 10:30 in the morning.
Well,
And then
actually, none of it makes sense, and I've seen the constables in commissioners court complaining about the funding and the lack of funding. So none of it makes sense to me.
that's correct. And not only that, they took away the let's talk, there's crime prevention money that the constables had. They have it in their own. There's 8 different constables. They know where their hotspots are. They collect the monies for the crime, for the hotspots, if you will. That's called the rollover funds. This commissioner's court twice has taken away 22 million and then 5 million plus from the constables, drained their hotspot crime prevention accounts. I'm going to give them back that money on January 3rd. We're going to find the money to do this. And because of the bail bond settlement, I'm going to get rid of that. That's cost us over $100 million so far in 3 years and 3 months. And by the way, Dallas didn't settle the exact twin case, went to the Fifth Circuit, won, and the Fifth Circuit said that the basis of that we settled our case is unconstitutional. Let's get the adults back in the room. Let's get this crime prevention started. Let's not have this decarceration and defund law enforcement era. Let's end it. And I intend to have the votes. We're going to have a 3-2 or a 4-1 vote to end this on January 3rd. Then we're going to enter into these interlocal agreements. You realize we have 69 law enforcement agencies just in Harris County. When you add up the 34 small cities, each with a peace officer, certified peace officers, and you add up the 20 school districts, you add up the constables, you add up the community colleges, we have 69 law enforcement agencies in Harris County. And the state statute allows for interlocal agreements to be made. And all it takes is for the seniors, the county, that's the governing body of all of these, to put together these interlocal agreements, much like we have for EMS. And EMS, the nearest ambulance will show up. It doesn't matter whose city it is or what department it is, what fire department it belongs to. We're going to have the same thing, so that when you have a level 1 threat to your life or your property or a family member or your business, my goal is to have some law enforcement officers from one of those 69 agencies at your place of business or your home or the place of your crisis within 120 seconds. I'm talking 2 minutes, and that's going to stop the crime.
I like it. I like it. Now, a lot of people, as I'm out and I'm talking to people, because I like to get out in the community and just have conversations with people, whether they're seniors or young people or whatever. A lot of people want to know what's your plan to deal with flooding, because it seems like nothing has been done, since the big flood that we had, and then of course Hurricane Harvey. A lot of people have not gotten their houses fixed since then. But the main thing is if the flooding wouldn't happen, then we wouldn't go through some of these things. So they want to know, what's your plan to deal with flooding?
Let's talk a little bit of history. In 2017, we had 30 billion gallons of water fall on Houston, 50 inches of water. It's the equivalent, during Harvey, it's the equivalent of Niagara Falls falling on Houston for an entire calendar year. That's the kind of disaster we had. It was the most expensive, and it was in terms of Texas disasters, it ranks number 1. So a year later, we went out into August of 2018 with a $2.5 billion bond election. And it was the largest bond election in the history of Harris County. There were multiple hearings, there were studies, there were environmental and social engineering studies, eminent domain studies, and the voters passed it about 80%. That bond election had exactly 181 projects that were GPS mapped, and they had a number that was attached to them too. The funding, we voted on 181 different projects. That was a contract with the voters. It's also a contract, by the way, with Wall Street that buys all of our bonds with our excellent credit rating. And Wall Street expects us to complete the contract with exactly the 181 projects. But no, this commissioner's court got the money. Ed Emmett was still county judge in August of 2018. In January of 2019, when they start looking at the contract they have with the voters on these projects as just sort of last suggestion or opening bid. Today, we only have less than 20 completed projects for out of 181, and this is almost 4 years later. We haven't, including those less than 20, we haven't even commenced on 50 of them. And now they're trying to disaggregate and move the money around, move all of for social engineering studies, for reparations, for all sorts of things that have nothing to do with getting our flood plan in place. And we're going to get hit again. I was around during these hurricanes. I was a port commissioner with Tropical Storm Allison. I mean, I was in Transtar during all these events. I know what's about to happen to us again. We have to get back. And I promise you that that's going to happen in January of next year. We're going to get back to the flood plan that you voters approved. It's a contract with you. It's a contract with our county, and we're going to get back and finish that flood bond program and get ready for the next event because it's coming. It's just a matter of when.
Well, the procurement process in county government to me is a joke. It's a complete joke. It's a sham. Only 4 or 5 companies seem to get all of the contracts. So what are your plans to change and fix the procurement process for Harris County government?
Our budget is about $8 billion right now. We issue a lot of vendor contracts. I like the way that some of the other agencies have done it in the past, including at the Port of Houston when I was a port commissioner. They would record all the qualification committee, the meetings of the committees with the particular persons that were coming through. They would record them, and then they would open up all the public bids in public with a couple hundred people in the audience right there. There was no backroom dealings. There were no executive sessions for a couple of hours that come out and then all of a sudden decide who's going to get what. We're going to have a more transparent process so that you know where your dollars are being spent. And by the way, I also will have the votes in January. We're going to take a look back at the last 4 years of vendor contracts. We're going to do a forensic audit on not the contracts themselves, the process of the contracts. And we're going to see where we can do better at the county level. And we're going to figure out a way that the public watches every single movement of their dollars as they're moving from a vendor who might be able to give us services to the completion of that contract. And I intend to have an open process for the public to be aware of how it's happening and what's happening.
You know, I hate going down the commissioner's court some days because it takes forever. I've never seen a process take that long, and it just wears you down. I mean, like one day, you know, Kim Ogg was in there and she's battling for more prosecutors, and they basically made the lady sit there all day. It's like
I was there.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to wait you out, make you tired. So, do you have a plan to make commissioners' court a little bit more realistic and shorter in terms of time?
Yes. We're going to get back to the way that they used to run it for 44 years around here. You know, Judge Lindsay started in the first of 3 Republican county judges for 44 years in a row. They didn't have 10-hour meetings and 12-hour meetings. They had 3 and 4-hour meetings. Okay. Sometimes they would just extend lunch and finish at 1:30 or 2. Then they were through for the day. I intend to do it that way. I am not going to have hearings on whether Tuesday follows Monday and then have 15 people talk about it. I mean, we're going to have public session is going to be for public comments on germane topics that are before Commissioner's Court that day. And we're going to have a process to where we're going to cut down these innately late meetings that the public, and I'm offended. I've been sitting there with the public. You can't believe the conversation that's had out in the hallways about what disrespect this is. And mind you, we have police officers that are out there. We have victims of families that are out there that want to talk about germane items, and they're having to sit here. In some cases, they'll leave a grieving family waiting so that the county judge can go have a press conference for 45 minutes with everyone sitting there waiting. This is not going to happen anymore. We're not going to have long meetings. We're going to have very good, very well planned out. The agenda will be very, the agenda is always public, but we're going to have a consent agenda like we always do. And we're not going to sit here and stray from our infrastructure needs and our infrastructure decision making. And that's it.
Now, we're going to dip back into crime a little bit. Being the Harris County judge, Lena Hidalgo has, if I get this wrong, correct me, has basically made Harris County a sanctuary county. And honestly, a lot of people coming across the border are not choir boys and choir girls. We have cartel members coming across the border. So as the Harris County judge, what things would you do to try and help us protect this, protect the borders and continue to make Harris County, get it back to being a safe county? How do you do that when we're already basically considered a sanctuary county?
And it's going to get worse. You're seeing now that a court last Friday stopped Title 42 from being lifted. But if Title 42 is lifted, we're going to wind up with an even more wide open border than we have now. The government's own numbers say that there are now 90,000 asylum immigrants in the Houston area right now that are sitting here with applications that'll take 2 to 3 years for them to process. And in the meantime, they're getting government housing, government food stamps, metro bus passes, cell phones, free lawyers that the county is paying for. They're in our public schools and our public health system. At some point in time, you got to have a rational conversation with the federal government on their responsibility to stop this. And if not, then get with Governor Abbott and everyone and declare this an emergency. Harris County cannot sustain this going forward. Now, what can you do? This is a federal government problem, but it winds up being our local problem when you have this kind of festering in our communities out there. And you know who's the most mad about this? The Latino community. The Latino moms don't know what's happening to their kids. They don't know whether their husbands or their fathers or their family members are coming home from this murder rate. It is just we've got to do something about stemming the crime rate. It will also we have to get our fair share from the federal government of what it's taking for Harris County to pay for this. We pay for almost all of those services through property taxes, but at some point in time, this community will start bearing the brunt of an increased property tax load if we can't get this under control. And we have to do that. And it's my intent to lower the property tax rate, not raise it. If I get a 4-1 vote with precinct 2 in there, that's what's going to happen in January next year too.
Now I had the opportunity a while back to sit down, because you're the type of guy, if somebody can get your contact, you don't have a problem sitting down and talking to people. We had to sit down, and when I sat down with you, I was impressed for one reason: you didn't have security. You didn't have extra security. The current county judge has on our tax dollars paying security to walk her basically around and do what she does. Would you continue to waste taxpayers' money on additional security, or would you be the same Vidal Martinez who's accessible before he got in office, just like he would be if he was in office?
Again, I've spent my 47 years here being on all sorts of commissions and boards and port authorities and and university boards of regents and Methodist Hospital Board and stuff. I've never had a single dollar that I needed to have anyone spent for my security. And no county judge before her, not in 44 years of Republican county judges, they spent zero during that time period. There's an arrogance about this. She says she needs help. She needs security. She lives in a high rise with security also, where she spends 2/3 of her time. I don't understand this at all. And we will not have any contracts for security going forward. And that, by the way, that's $40,000 a month. And much like the COVID contract, it went to a one company person up north in the county somewhere. Really?
Well,
Really?
it actually went to a one person company whose office was actually a FedEx office location.
Even
And
better.
that right there should have threw up red flags to people. Man, I appreciate that, because we don't want our tax money wasted. I also feel that Commissioner Court has wasted tons of money on, this is something that comes to me on a daily, bike lanes. We have, hold on, don't nobody seem to be using the bike lanes but Commissioner Ellis and his friends. But yet we created traffic jams in prominent parts of Houston, where they're installing these bike lanes, or they're opening parks when the murder rate is continuously going up through the roof. So the frivolous spending that they've been doing, even when they issue out contracts, like it was one in particular to Harris Health, and I think that contract was for like $40 or $50 million, where they were going to deal with crime. Well, I don't believe Harris Health has the expertise to deal with crime, maybe from a mental health aspect, but from an overall crime aspect, I don't see it. So how do we stop the frivolous spending that, to me, has been orchestrated by three people: Rodney Ellis, Adrian Garcia, and the current county judge, Lena Hidalgo?
Last December, in an effort to stem the crime wave that we're in, they entered into a $50 million contract for trees and lighting. That was their crime law enforcement mechanism. Last week, Adrian Garcia got passed a resolution that took the excess monies from the toll road authority for bike lanes and bike trails. Now, I want to ask you, with this crime wave that we're in, how many mothers are going to, and how many people are going to be out on bike trails during this time? First, you shouldn't take the money away from the toll road authority. Any excess monies in the toll road authority ought to go to pay down and eliminate the tolls on the paid for segments already. Then the next item should be for business, for maintenance of the toll roads. And then the third, all that has been used in the past by Republican county judges to keep our tax rate low. And that's what you use it for. You don't turn around and use it for bike trails. That's ridiculous. And there should be you don't go and raid. By the way, there's another contract with the voters when we set up the toll road authorities years ago. Okay, that was Judge Lindsay. That's how far back that goes. That's a contract with the voters. And in that contract that we approved, the toll road authority, when they're paid up, they're free at that point. So let's start thinking about how to do that. But there's a certain number of things that you can use the excess monies for, but they don't seem to care about contracts with the public. They just look at it as last bid or some suggestion on prior conduct.
All right. Now, I think there's some forgotten people in our city. And what I mean by that is, it's like the homeless population has been forgot about. It's like our veterans who, laid their lives on the line to defend our country have been forgot about. Is there a plan? Do you have any plans to help our veterans to substantiate a better quality of life? Because honestly, I think that veterans shouldn't have to pay for anything. I believe that's just my honest opinion. I don't think that their taxes should go up. I don't think they should have to pay for anything, because they fought for this country. So is there a plan to substantiate a better quality of life for our veterans?
I was honored to be at an Armed Forces military ball last Friday, yesterday in the evening, with about 250, 300 people there from every branch of the service. It also had wounded veterans. Tonight, I just finished coming from a Helping a Hero function where there were probably 24 veterans, injured veterans, who are sitting here with receiving from Helping a Hero. Lee Greenwood is going to be having a concert with them. That was tonight. But right before this, Gary, tomorrow night, I have a function in Katy, Veterans for Vidal. I honor the veterans. I want to do everything we can. I also chaired in the Latino community on Harrisburg, the Open Door Mission for many years, where we had a lot of veterans that were there that were not being cared for by our federal government. We have the DeBakey VA hospital here that we need to get our congressional delegation. And I think that you see when you see former military like Dan Crenshaw, you're going to see Wesley Hunt in there. You're going to see Morgan Luttrell. You're going to see a new day in Washington, I think, to taking care of our veterans. And the county will do everything we can to coordinate the public health system, Harris Health, to help our veterans at this point. Anything we can do. And I served for 30 years now on the Methodist board. I know what can be done with philanthropy, with the exercise of good judgment and good business practices. And let's just coordinate all those and make them a priority. You have to do that from a leadership point of view. And somebody has to lead, and somebody has to hold other people accountable. And I'm going to be the bully pulpit for veterans.
All right, I'm going to give you a wild card. A lot of people don't believe that voter fraud is real. I believe it's real because I've caught it. I've seen it firsthand. I know it's real. Do you think that voter fraud has come into play in this primary election season as well as the runoff? And do you think that we may have to deal with it in November?
The short answer is yes. It has. We set up, by the way, we're only one of a few counties in the state of Texas that created an elections administrator. The constitutional duty is with the county clerk.
So can you get rid of the election administrator when you become county judge?
Remember, I told you on January 3rd what's going to happen? By 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to eliminate the elections administrator and that department and return it to Stan Stannard, who will have been elected once again as the county clerk. And that's where it's going to go. I've never seen anything run so poorly. The state of Florida with a hanging Chad. Do you remember back in 2000? We didn't know for a month who our president was going to be in Florida because of Florida. That was the one state. Florida today gets their election results statewide by the 10 o'clock news. And yet we're the largest county in Texas. All the other 253 counties in Texas can report that night. And it takes us 30 hours to get our results finalized. And then, we found 10,000 more votes here. And now we have the elections administrator wanting to have the clerks take home the ballot boxes to bring for the next day. That's ridiculous. There is voter fraud. There's voter harvesting. It's been proven. You can just see, you go down and talk to the ballot security people at Harris County Republican Party. They will show you instances of that. You have people that are receiving mail-in ballots and never asked for them. And then their ballots don't count when they go, and their provisional ballots when they show up on election day. Those aren't being counted. This is not the way to run our elections. It used to be people were always concerned with getting the vote out. Now it's a matter of who counts the vote. And we're going to figure this out. We're going to have a better system. We are the third largest county in population in the country. We're bigger than the state of Louisiana, just Harris County. Only Cook County and Los Angeles County are bigger than us. And those are both Democrat. We are the gold standard of the country on how to run our county. We've always operated with a surplus. We've always done our infrastructure needs only, not the social woke programs. We've always taken care of business, and you never hear about a scandal like COVID contracts and contracts being let for tent hospitals and things like that. You never heard about that before. I want to get us back to business, to infrastructure, to spending our dollars in the contractual way that we entered into it with the voters. And I want to get us back to that. And that includes eliminating Miss Longoria's department and getting that back. And that's going to be done on January 3rd, too. That's by lunchtime. All right. But that will get done.
You're a man that stands on principle. I know that. But the people out there are getting to know you. And you guys have 48 hours to make an informed decision. And my decision was simple. I've already voted, and I voted for Vidal Martinez. Will you continue to stand on your morals, or will you be like some of the rest and be controlled behind the scenes?
If you know me, and you know my law practice, you know my family, you know the things that I've done, the things that I've led, I've never been controlled by anybody, and I will not be controlled by anyone. I believe I'm a pro-life person. I have been my entire life. I'm pro-business. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm I'm anti-corruption. And I believe that, and I'm anti-mandate also. I don't believe in any mandates. I think it's up to you and your family to decide how you should best manage your private affairs and keep the government out of most of them that they can. So I'm a person of principle. I'm 67 years old. I've been this way my entire life. No one's going to change me. And that's part of the reason some of the support that my opponent got was because they know they can't control me.
Well, let's talk to some people who have a lot of control over elections. And I think a lot of people misuse these people. I'm talking about the African American community. I am talking about the African American community that went to the polls and they wanted Trump out so bad that they picked Biden. And now I can't put gas in my car, and they can't put gas in theirs. So from the African American community, we hurt on a different level. No matter what anybody thinks, we hurt on a different level. This is your opportunity to speak directly to the African American community. And the reason that I'm asking this question, and I'm asking you to do this, is because whenever there's something that needs to go forward for people, they seem to individualize all the issues for certain races. But when it's African American, all of a sudden it becomes people of color. We get lumped in with everybody else. So, can the African American community trust you to do the things that you say you're going to do? I believe you're going to do them. That's why I voted for you. But now is your time to talk directly to them. And the reason I singled them out, y'all, because, and I have to be honest, Latinos did not put Joe Biden in the White House.
No.
White votes did not put Joe Biden in the White House. Black votes put Joe Biden in the White House, and he's abandoned them ever since he got in there. So the trust level with the African American community, how can they trust you to do what you say you're going to do?
First of all, when I came here, Harris County was less than 2 million people in 1975. Today we're 4.7 million. I helped build this place. I helped it I was a port commissioner. I helped it by keeping criminals off the streets when I was a federal prosecutor. I helped it with port commission when we had hurricanes and tropical storm Allison coming through there. I helped it with the #1 hospital, Methodist Hospital. I've been on that board for 30 years. We built this place together. And now we have to, if you add up the percentage of the Latino community and the African American community, we're 60% of this population. We should act like it. We should act like in our children's interests. We should make sure that we provide the infrastructure needs that we promised that we would. We're in charge of only three things in the county: public safety, public health, and transportation. That affects all of us. You know what affects all of us too? A crime wave. That affects all of us. We need to stop that. We need to make sure that our public health dollars are rationally spent, and that we don't go to 4 red level threats that affect all of us together right here. We don't do that anymore. And in transportation, I'm going to get back our I-45 $8 billion for expanding it. It's the biggest award by the state of Texas. And this commissioner's court turned around and sued them because they wanted to spend the money elsewhere. Well, let me tell you something. That's not the way we do business around here. The African American community and the Latino community are now the majority. We didn't used to be, but we are now. And this is a new day. This is a new era. And we're going to work side by side going forward for our community's needs. We have 20 school districts in Harris County also. We got to make sure that we rationalize all of these efforts, the governmental infrastructure for our kids. We got to give them opportunity for jobs, but we got to get them educated at the same time. And that's a common goal that we have in the lower income strata, if you will. That affects all of us. And I'm dedicated to doing that for all of Harris County, for all of our community, and for all of our kids.
I think we have a question from one of my, they're a true fan of the War Zone Thunder. That's what he calls himself, or she calls herself. And what they say is there's a lot of disenfranchised voters who are lifelong Democrats and have become disillusioned with that party. What would you offer them or persuade them to change parties?
My grandfather, who's a very wise man, he said, don't let the first 3 or 4 things that define you be political. What are your morals? What have you accomplished? What have you done? How have you affected other people's lives? Take a look at what you think are the right things to do, how to spend government money, how not to have a crime wave, how not to have corruption in your public servants. You have to, when you're looking at the things that I believe in and the things that I want my kids to grow up in, the environment, that leads you into the decision on, well, who stands for that also? I stand for that in this election. I'm the only one that's been here for 47 years. I built this place. Only 2 other people have the option to be the county judge next January 3rd. Both of them have lived here less than 6 years. One's from California. One just, Lena Hidalgo, even with her 3 years now, when you accumulate all the time she's in Houston, it's 6 years. So who do you want to lead your governmental structure that affects everyone's daily life? That's your county judge. That's your public safety person. Who do you want to have a public health system that works? That's your county judge. You want it to work without corruption, without influence. And transportation, how about mobility? How about flooding? How about all emergency management? Who do you want in that seat right there? This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It's about who do you trust to do that for all of us? And that'll lead you straight over into the Republican runoff next Tuesday.
Okay. Man, you're breezing through this, man. I mean, and I don't see you looking down at notes or nothing when you're talking.
I'm
It's
not
like you
looking at
notice
anything
like the
but you.
back of your hand.
I do. I feel it. I grew up here. This is my community. We're going to lead our way through this. We're going to win. Let's
So
do
by
it.
you saying you grew up here,
Well,
how
I
do
grew
you
my
feel with?
my entire adult life.
Okay, now you've been here for a minute, and I know how I feel because I've never seen Houston or Harris County look the way that it looks now, and I've been here ever since birth. How do you feel personally with what you see how county government is operating and the way that they've just basically forgotten about the people? This is a very personal question. I want to see, your heart on this one.
I'm sick of it, and that's what caused me to run. I spent an inordinate amount of time, like dozens of people did, trying to ask Ed Emmett to run again. okay? And he decided that he wasn't going to do it. I really was looking for that. Then I was looking for somebody that I thought could come in here and stand up to Rodney Ellis and replace Lena Hidalgo. And I kept looking for that person, and everyone kept telling me, you better go look in the mirror because you're the only one that can do it. And finally, I sat down with my wife, who she got up and literally one day and said, no, you are the only person that can do this. And I'm a lawyer for 44 years. I'm used to talking people into things, okay, or convincing them of a point of view. I didn't have to do that. I didn't spend 30 seconds with my wife. She said it was the right thing to do right now, right at this time, and I was the only person. I am sick about what's happening to our county. I am sick when I see Texas Rangers with search warrants walking into our county government. I am sick when I see a tent hospital being built on NRG parking lot and doesn't see one single patient, and it gets dismantled, and didn't even check with any of the 5 big CEOs of the Texas Medical Center when nobody ran out of capacity. Repeat, nobody, none of the big 5 hospitals, including mine at Methodist, ran out of capacity during the COVID contract. I am sick when I see $50 million for crime law prevention for trees and lighting, or people on bike trails. I'm sick when I see security contracts costing taxpayers $40,000 a month. That has to stop. I am in this business to stop this nonsense. This did not happen for 44 years. And there was a reason why we had 44 years of Republican county judges. The ring around the city in Harris County, the ring around the city is bigger, has always been, had been more populated. The city of Houston right now is about 2.2 million, but the surrounding donut is 2.5 million. It's conservative, it's business, it's particularly infrastructure. And that's why you really didn't hear much about county judges, because they just put their nose to the grindstone and took care of our infrastructure business. Public safety, public health, and transportation. That's what I want to get back to. I don't want to pay for early childhood education when we don't operate classrooms. I don't want to pay $10 million for defense lawyers for amnesty applicants. These are things that we don't do. I don't want to have trees and lighting contracts anymore. I mean, there is a place for that's a parks budget, by the way, and every commissioner has an interest in that. But don't pretend, and don't take money away from law enforcement, and don't defund law enforcement. This is not sustainable. And I know that as a former federal prosecutor, and watching this. By the way, in another year, I was the state bar chairman. I was in 01, right when 9/11 hit. For 1 year, I was the head of all lawyers in the state of Texas. So I've seen it from the prosecutor point of view of keeping criminals in jail, to the administration of justice from the top. When I was state bar chairman, 86,000 lawyers around the state. The most miserable year of my life, by the way, Gary, when you have to deal with that many lawyers who want to tell you how to run the world, and they did, by the way. So I couldn't wait to give the gavel back. I've seen it. I'm sick of this, and it's not sustainable. We're better than this, and we deserve an infrastructure that works. We are the best county in America. Let's start acting like it.
Well, let's go over here and we're gonna dabble in, we're gonna dip into something. Okay. I understand misdemeanor bail reform, and I actually support misdemeanor bail reform. Now felony bail reform, the way that they did it, and what I gotta do is I gotta give credit to the person that created this problem, which was Rodney Ellis, who's running around now acting like this is so atrocious, letting these people out on these bonds. But Mr. Ellis, when I go to your campaign finance report, I see that you supported financially a bunch of the judges that sit on the benches that's letting these people out on 9, 10, 11 bonds. Do you believe in misdemeanor bail reform as it pertains, because we have a lot of people that's still locked up in the county jail when it pertains to marijuana? You know, I'm like, and I don't know if you ever saw the movie, but I'm like Smokey from Friday. We come from the earth. It comes from the earth. You've been a prosecutor. It makes no sense to have somebody sitting in jail for 2 or 3 years on a misdemeanor weed charge. So how do you feel about, decriminalizing marijuana charges in the county?
Well, it's already been decriminalized. It's a misdemeanor now. It's either Class B or Class C misdemeanor. So that's already happening. Most of the people that are in jail for misdemeanor violations are not there for weed. But let's talk about the misdemeanor bail bond reform. This was just an animal that got out of its cage. And what happened is that the judges were able to enter in what they call a general order that they basically started following, where you wouldn't even see a magistrate. In other words, there were automatic bail bond, automatic releases, and for the catch and release, and you could have people with multiple misdemeanors, and it bled over. What occurred is this animal got out of the cage, if you will, and it bled over. These judges started using the same general order for the felonies, and that's where the problem is. We now have people that are out on 4, 5, and 6 felony bonds. We have over 100 people that are out there with 4 or 5 felony murder bonds out there right now. This is unsustainable. We're now into 170 something people. I haven't been able to count for the last 2 nights. We were at 173 2 nights ago, with people that have been killed on our streets and murdered. There's no respect for law enforcement at this point. And this is bled over. And if all you have to do, don't take my word for it. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. Go look at Kim Ogg's report that she filed with the Commissioner's Court. And they will go on Crime Stoppers any night and just pull up 1 or 2 of their articles from Andy Kahn. You will see what's happened here. And misdemeanor bail reform had a bunch of noble causes that started it out, but the genie got out of the bottle and they were not able to control it now. Now we have to come back and eliminate and get back to the rational system of bail reform.
Your opponent has realistically not voted in a Republican primary in I don't know how long. What you got to say about that?
Well, apparently, and this is by others on the, she gets criticized. Remember, she got 29% of the vote, which means 71% of the people in the primary didn't vote for her. And she has some raging, quarrels going on with a lot of people out there. One of those is that she was registered to vote in 2016 and has had somewhere in the order of 16 opportunities to vote. And until this election cycle, actually only voted in 1 election cycle in 2020 and didn't even vote for the flood bonds in August 2018, the biggest disaster in our history, and didn't vote for those. So she has a record of not voting during that time period. And some of the Republican primary purists have taken her to account for that.
Well, I tell you guys what, I mean, Vidal is a man of great conviction. I mean, if you ever get the opportunity to sit down and talk to him, especially if you're out and you're voting and you run into him at the polls, just stop and have a conversation with him. I had a conversation with him about, me going to college, and he gave me some advice. I'm telling him I'm thinking about going and getting my master's, and he told me, no, you need to go straight to law school.
You do.
You just need to go straight to law school. So this is the type of person. So I want to be fair because I've had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Martinez and just have general conversations. I tried to do this with his opponent, who cut me off on the phone, never called me back. That doesn't sit well with me because I need to be able to know that I got access to the people that, are going to represent me. So you guys need to think about that. You can meet this man somewhere and just have a conversation with him, and get a realistic answer for the questions that you are going to ask. Now, we know for a fact, Vidal, and I know because I've done the research, that minority-owned businesses in the county, in Harris County, have not been getting their fair shake. And that
Correct.
includes African American, Latinos, that's women. They're included in the minority-owned businesses. How do you plan to change that? Because right now, like I said earlier, only 4 or 5 companies seem to be getting all the contracts. But from a minority business standpoint, how do you fix that? Because there are a lot of great smaller companies that want to do business with the county, but they've not been allowed to do it.
Interestingly, the city has the minority contracting organization. They have a very organized effort to do that, where you can have single registration and be qualified under their the alphabet soup. I never can figure out how many alphabet the numbers are in it right now. But in the minority contracting, the city has done a better job than the county. We have so many governmental entities. Remember, I was telling you about just the law enforcement entities, that there were 69 different agencies around here. We have community colleges here. We have school districts here. We have small cities that are here. Harris County has to take the lead and has to be the leader in creating a common mechanism for minority contractors, small businesses, to be able to enter into the public sector and compete. We're not talking about handouts. We're talking about being given qualified people, being given the opportunity to compete on an even playing field. And I think that again, you have to have the moral courage and you have to have the bully pulpit to pull everyone together. Well, who else? The city can't pull everybody in the county together. Only the county judge can do that. And I will use that bully pulpit to be able to try to do that. The county has always lagged behind the city. It's time to fix that. And it's also time to bring in all the other governmental sectors in there, Metro, the port, everybody into the same thing, and show people that we are the gold standard of counties in America. Let's be the gold standard for small business opportunity at the same time. And it takes a leader to do that.
We have a question, and this is what it says. There are a lot of us who have been told for years that the Republicans are racist and the bad guys. Why do you think Democrats continue to push this narrative, and are Republicans a welcoming party?
It's a mantra that's been there for all of our lifetimes, Gary. Okay, that's the mechanism that the Democrats have against the Republicans. Only, let me tell you, we have now, if you take all the Latinos from El Paso to Brownsville, that number is 3.1 million Latinos. In Harris County, in Houston, we have 3.2 million Latinos. In other words, we have more Latino population than the entire border with Mexico. Okay, sitting right here. We're the largest population of Latinos in the state. And what has happened is the Democrats have taken the left turn away from the Latino community. They've taken it on social issues. You have AOC and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Biden, and you have the highest inflation in 40 years. You have the highest gasoline prices. Those are not political or Republican issues. All of a sudden, the Latino community in South Texas, in the 4 biggest counties that used to be the stronghold of the Democrat Party, in 2020, 2 of those 4 counties went Republican, and it appears that the other 2 are going to go Republican in this next cycle. So ask yourself what's happening here. It's so easy to say that Republicans are racist. That's not the issue. The issue is, what do you believe in? What are your moral convictions? What are things that you stand for? What do you want the environment of your family to be in? Do you want fair opportunity? Do you want a good education for your children? Do you want fair work laws? Those are the things that define you first, not the Republican or Democrats. But the Democrats have found this election cycle is going to be very determinative of what happens in our short future. because as Harris County goes, probably so goes the state, and then goes the country. And if we don't solve that, that's fine. But it's very easy to generalize that that Republicans are racist. Some of the, it's not the issue. You have to look at the independence of the Latino community and the fact that they feel that the Democrat Party and their platform have abandoned them.
Well, I want to chime in on that because I switched parties and I left the Democratic Party. And ever since I came over to the Republican Party, I have not been asked to abandon my community. I have not been asked to do things that would go against what I believe in. The only thing I've been around is like-minded people that believe in family, faith, and freedom. That's what they believe in. So if you're wavering on, you know, whether or not you should switch parties, and I made Vidal laugh with this, I say it's sort of like filing bankruptcy. You'll wake up the next morning, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. If Gary Monroe, who's been a Democrat all his life, can switch parties and not miss a beat, what stops you? What stops you? So I know that you're a busy man and we in crunch time. Reintroduce yourself to the people. Tell them what you're running for and why they should vote for you.
I'm Vidal Martinez. I'm running to be your Harris County judge and the leader of your public safety mechanism, the leader of your public health mechanism, and the leader of your transportation. It is something that is so critical right now to stop this crime wave that we're in, to stop this distasteful corruption that you're watching, and to stop the incompetence. Let's go back to the contract we have with you voters for about $10 billion for the I-45 expansion and the flood bonds. How about that? Just getting back to business. Let's create the environment, get us back to the gold standard that we were. And I don't want you to I don't want you to remember my name going forward after this election. County judges keep their nose to the grindstone and stay out of the newspapers. And I promise you that that's what will happen with this administration. And you will always be able to find me. In my 47 years here, everyone knows how to reach me. My phone number has always been in the phone book. It's on the internet. My email is there. You'll be able to find me. And I am a listener. And I'll be able to get back to you if I can't talk to you right then. But I'm going to be the most available, the most experienced, the most qualified, and lead you into greater days that we have here. Let's act our size, folks. We're 7.5 million people around here, but Harris County is the keystone to all of this, and it's the keystone to the state. Let's get back to being the best that we can. And I'm your leader to do that. I'm Vidal Martinez. I'm asking for your vote. If you did not vote in the Democrat or the Republican primary, you can come in and vote next Tuesday in the Republican runoff. If you voted in the Republican primary, you can also do that. If you voted in neither, you can jump into the Republican runoff primary next Tuesday. It's going to be very important to vote. Turnout is going to be less than it was in the primary, and it's going to be whoever turns out that day is going to wind up being the nominee to beat Lina Hidalgo. I will beat Lina Hidalgo this fall, and I will return Harris County on January 3rd. All those things that I talked about getting rid of catch and release, funding law enforcement, getting our I-45 money back, firing the elections administrator, getting back our flood plan, those things are going to happen on the first day in office. And if not, I want to hear from you on January 4th that we didn't get that done in that very first day.
Well, I'll be there January 3rd. I'll be at that first meeting because I want to see you do it, and I support you. So for all of you out there that feel till this day that the Republican Party is a racist party, I want to tell you this. I want you to go back and I want you to do your history. I want you to go back to the civil rights era. And I want you to have a real conversation with me and tell me who fought harder for us to get those civil rights. I want you to tell the truth about it. I need you to tell the truth. In this world that we live in right now, I don't see the D or the R. I see the most qualified candidate And I don't really care who they are. But in this particular race, this is the man, Vidal Martinez, that I feel is the most qualified person. And I can tell you, I'm going to put the muscle behind you once we get past this runoff, and we're going to beat the brakes off of Lena Hidalgo. And I think by the time she gets ready to run, she'll be indicted anyway. Who wants to put it? She's not Marion Barry. Let's just put it like that. One of the best politicians DC ever saw after he got, you know, arrested for crack cocaine. But I don't think this lady has a clue. She's controlled by Rodney Ellis, and that's a major control issue. And since she's been in office, we have not accomplished anything. We've actually gone backwards. So I'm imploring to you, vote for Vidal Martinez in this runoff election, and then let's get ready for November so we can vote him in as a county judge, and then we can start working on getting back to making this county a safe place like it used to be. It's going to take a lot of work. So you got to make sure you got a soldier in office, and one that's going to sit on that Diaz and not be a punk to Rodney Ellis. Ain't no punk in Vidal. I'm gonna tell you that now. It's not gonna happen. So you can either neutralize Mr. Ellis or you can keep him in power through the likes of Lena Hidalgo. So my African American community, you know, I don't ask you to vote for people that I don't believe in. I've already casted my vote for Vidal Martinez. Got any final words, Mr. Martinez?
God bless. God bless all of us. We have a solution here. It's not rocket science. It's let's get the vote out. Let's get me in office. And I promise I will never disappoint you in the effort, the results, or the governance afterwards.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to come on and talk to the people, my friend. Good luck Tuesday. I'll be at the polls working hard for you, my man.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you to all your viewers and listeners. Good night.
No problem. Thank you.